L4, L5 disc herniation. They said surgery was my only option until I tried this. In this video, I'm going to show you how I healed my L4, L5 disc problem without surgery, step by step, and how you can too. I was diagnosed with an L4, L5 and an L5S1 disc herniation, and every doctor told me the same thing. You need surgery. But I found another way and it worked. I'm Dr. Gregory Kramer, a chiropractor in Livonia, Michigan. I help people recover from disc injuries without surgery every day. But what most people don't know is I've been through it myself. I know the pain, I know the frustration, I know the fear that nothing's gonna work, and the pressure to say yes to surgery when it feels like that's the only option left. This video isn't about generic stretchers or surface level advice. I'm going to walk you through the exact steps I followed to make a full recovery, steps most doctors never talk about, and how you can use the same approach to finally get real, lasting relief. These are the same steps I've used to help hundreds of patients heal from disc herniations. I never imagined I'd need them myself, but going through it made me even better doctor. Be sure to watch the entire video because missing even one of these steps can mean a much longer recovery, continued pain, or worse, ending up in surgery. And don't skip step number 5. It's a patient favorite and it's one that accelerates healing the fastest. Let's start with step number 1. Let me take you back a couple years ago. Now, have any of you ever done something, didn't feel it at the time, but the next day woke up in excruciating pain? That would happen to me. Typically on Sundays, I was training martial arts. I was doing a lot of heavy kicking. I was also lifting weights, pretty much squatting and deadlifting. Those things can be stressful to the spine, but you know what? I've been doing them for the last 20 or 30 years. And the next day, we're talking Monday I felt a little off, okay? And I went to my chiropractor and I got checked, I got adjusted, and actually I got adjusted twice that day. And didn't have a problem on Monday, but all of a sudden, the Tuesday morning, early, probably somewhere around 3 to 5 o'clock, my leg was killing me, burning down the front of my leg, wrapping around. It was the L4 nerve root, and I was in big trouble. I knew this was different. Now, I hear about these problems all the time, but this was different. And then at that time, I went into the office, and I could barely stand for an x-ray. And I got flexion extension studies. I wanted to make sure if I had any ligament damage. And you know what? I was in bad shape. I could barely stand to get the x-rays taken. And then I went and saw a chiropractor again, and we had some really gentle treatment, still in bad shape. Now, we're at Tuesday. By Wednesday, I couldn't drive. I canceled in. I had to have the other doctor at my office, Dr. Tipton, cover for me, and I knew I was in bad shape. So Wednesday was bad. I couldn't get in a car. I actually had to lie face down on a ball in a minivan. I was driven to a chiropractor, had some gentle treatment, still no good. Now we're at Thursday. Thursday, I was in agony. So now I started spinal decompression. Again, I could not lie face down. I couldn't sit. I could barely walk. In fact, I had to sleep face down over a football for about a week. So I was being transported. Again, I couldn't sit. I couldn't lie. I had to be on a ball in a minivan. And so I had my first spinal decompression. It was comfortable while I did it. Let me tell you, when you're in that kind of agony, you get scared. Absolutely. Adjustment can be scary. But when I was on decompression, completely safe. You have no fears, almost fell asleep. It felt good. And that was Thursday. Well, Friday was worse. I'm thinking, oh my God. So when I started to get under decompression care, I couldn't hang. I was not comfortable. I was in too much pain, too much inflammation. So I had to tap out. On our decompression table, if it's not comfortable, there's a kill switch that you can stop it at any time. Well, I knew this was different. I needed to get an MRI. But my dilemma, I couldn't lie face down. I couldn't lie face up. How am I getting an MRI? So I called the doctor, who's a friend of mine. And of course, as a chiropractor, I work with pain management doctors. I've worked with surgeons. So I went to a hospital that they could knock me unconscious. I figured it'd take me an hour or two, get an MRI, and start getting more decompression care. Well, that's not what happened. There was a weekend in the wintertime where there were all these accidents, and I could not get into the emergency room. So, as a result, I stayed overnight, and they doped me up with all kinds of drugs. And then I finally got the MRI. It was a huge extrusion. Now, if you know anything about different types of herniations, a bulge is more of a degenerative condition. A protrusion usually does well with chiropractic care. An extrusion doesn't usually do as well. Doesn't mean we can't help you if you have an extrusion, and I've helped lots of them, but the chances of full recovery without surgery become less. Well, I had an extrusion at L4 and a protrusion at L5. Make a short story, I had a miserable weekend. I was pumped full of drugs. I could barely sleep. I had to bring my own fitball to the hospital. In fact, the hospital did not have a second fitball for me to lie on. That was the only position I could get relief, even with all the drugs that I was on. So I had my wife go out to the nearest Walmart or Target to buy me a second one, because in case my fitball, those blow-up balls, broke, I needed to have something just in case. So lo and behold, just like a fever breaks, after a couple days of icing, narcotics, the pain broke. And by Monday, I was able to get on spinal decompression. And that's where the healing began. Now, if the pain is too great, some people do need an epidural. They need a shot to quiet that inflammation. No one wants that. I certainly didn't want it. But sometimes that's necessary for people that are in agonizing pain. So if you're in agonizing pain and you did not qualify, or you couldn't handle decompression, well, hold on a second. You might need an epidural to get through it. Decompression is designed not only for relief, but it's also designed to create a healing environment. So some people do need to put out that fire, put out that inflammation. Now, most can use natural methods like certain supplements and lots of ice, but some people that are in agony do need some strong medication or an epidural so they can receive the life-saving benefit of non-surgical spinal decompression. And that's what it was for me. I didn't need a shot, but it did take time. So I tell everybody, you might need a week of agony to get through that inflammatory response before you can start spinal decompression. So you need to know, and I've talked about this in past videos, that do I need to, is this an emergency that I need immediate surgery? And most of the time, no. If you haven't lost control of your bowel or bladder, you don't have caught Aquinas syndrome, most of you have time. So that's the key point I want to make. You have time. You need to put out that information, and you need to find someone with a spinal decompression unit that's experienced in disc herniations. So that was a huge factor for me, that you really need time. And by the way, after that herniation, I was told by doctors that we need surgery. All right, they say you just might as well get it done. You're in the hospital, just get it done. And I said, you know what? Let me give nature a chance. And I just figured I just needed some time to quiet that inflammation so I can get back under the non-surgical spinal decompression. So step one, what do you got to do? Evaluated by someone that understands the disc problem, that has a non-surgical spinal decompression that's been in practice for years. That's the most important thing for that disc to heal. What the decompression does is it pumps fluid into that disc. It gets the inflammatory materials out and pumps nutrients in. It's like a pump, and that helps reduce that disc pressure. It helps retraction of either bulges or herniation, and it feels good and it's comfortable. That's the most important thing. So step one, you need to find someone that understands the disc herniation. You also need to get an MRI or a motion x-ray or both. Now, what's the next step? The next step is gentle exercises. I've talked about this in the past. Gentle walking, some gentle exercises that don't hurt. And bottom line is you want to do anything that centralizes that pain. That means if you got leg pain and I had serious pain wrapping around that leg, right above my knee. Okay, as that leg pain starts to reduce, you know you're doing the right thing. Now, what's the third step? Bottom line. Now we can do some gentle corrective care. We can do core stability, and I have several videos on that. But the first thing is we got to get comfortable. All right, we cannot start with strengthening right away. We do gentle mobility work. Now that you also need to do gentle exercises that centralize the pain. For some of you, it's leaning back. For those of you, it's bending forward. At the time for me, I was lying over a football, so gentle flexion exercises. And each day I could stand a little longer, I could sit a little longer, I could walk a little more, and I started getting my mobility back. Now my leg was numb, man. It took time. Now, the next step is we got to strengthen and rebuild this thing. I don't want this to happen again. So we gradually progress with the exercises. We walk a little bit every day. That's huge. And I also walked with a supportive belt. And I started going, I probably took, I think I took about a week off from work, and I started going back to work adjusting. But I made sure I was avoiding lifting, I was avoiding bending. I kept my spine neutral. That means you don't bend, you don't flex at the waist. And I gradually started returning to work. I gradually started doing exercises. You can do exercises that unload the spine. You know, things like push-ups and chin-ups if you're used to going to the gym. But I definitely wasn't lifting a plate from the floor. And at this time, I was getting spinal decompression done approximately 4 to 5 days a week. So that first month, I was probably having it done to me 4 to 5 days a week. And each visit made me feel more confident. I could move better, I could sleep better. And like I said, within the first week, I was already improving. But that's not everybody. You know, most people, when you're in bad shape, if we can see a 20 to 50% change in, let's say, 30 days, that's a good sign. Now, bottom line, spinal decompression is the biggest step that you take. But, and I'm going to repeat this, you got to be able to handle it. And it's often overlooked. A lot of people don't realize the benefit of non-surgical spinal decompression. Some people use exercise, and that's important, but again, it doesn't address the disc. Some people do spinal adjustments, and sometimes that's fantastic for a disc problem. It depends how severe. But I can tell you this, as a patient, you feel safe in spinal decompression, all right? And especially that first 4 to 8 weeks, let me tell you, when you're in agony, I'm not talking a low-grade chronic problem, but I'm talking acute, agonizing pain shooting down your leg where you're debating about surgery. Spinal decompression makes you feel good, makes you move better, and you feel safe doing it. And bottom line, this is the one that most patients say that gave their life back. It helps to heal the disc at a cellular level. It pumps nutrients, pumps blood flow into the disc, and it helps waste products get out. And that's a huge factor in healing. And like I said, when it creates a negative pressure, it has a tendency to reduce the disc bulge and disc herniation. So spinal decompression feels good while you're doing it, and it feels good afterwards. And the bottom line is that changes everything. Now, how long does it take? How many weeks for recovery? Well, again, it depends. It takes a good year for full healing of that disc. Remember, I wanted to be able to lift weights, do martial arts, to be able to kickbox and wrestle. Listen, I'm at 60 years old. I'm not looking to compete with 22-year-olds out of the Navy SEALs, but I want to be able to do the stuff I want to be able to do. But I recognize that first 3 months is a critical stage. All right? You don't want to irritate it that first 3 months, but it takes a good year. And for me, the first month, you're getting every bit 3 to 4 times a week with decompression. And I would tell patients for a realistic recovery, our first goal is 30 days, all right? Most people, we should see 20 to 50% chance. The next goal is 90 days, right? 90 days is where that disc heals about 80%. And then we have goals like at 6 months and a year. We want to, and also you need to be aware realistically that you're going to have some flare-ups. I did. You start doing better, you do too much, you backstep. Takes a couple weeks, go forward. expect a few flare-ups. It's unrealistic if you have an active lifestyle and an active job that you're not going to have some flare-ups. Just be smart as you add a variety of exercises and lifestyle things back into your life. Be very cautious about loading your spine in the first 90 days. So where are we now? Well, bottom line is I have 0 leg pain, and 90% of the time I have 0 back pain. My quality of life is pretty good. I work, I don't have any problem working. I exercise, I lift weights, I do some kickboxing at a level that's appropriate for my age and the shape of my spine. I avoided surgery, and I'm not 100%. There's some damage to the disc, but I'm pretty darn close. I'm not on any drugs. I did not have to take any medication except for that weekend where I went to the hospital. And I'm very thankful that I know about spinal decompression. I know about chiropractic adjustments. I know about these targeted rehab exercises that I posted. And I think you would benefit from that approach. If you're struggling with a disc herniation right now, I want you to know you're not alone and you don't have to give up. Surgery is not your only option. If I was able to heal my L4-L5, my L5-S1 disc herniation using these 5 steps, you might be able to do as well. You just need the right approach and the right guidance. Find a doctor who specializes in corrective care, understands the spine structurally, and offers spinal decompression and has experience helping patients recover from disc injuries just like yours. If this video gave you hope or helped you in any way, give it a like. Share it with someone who needs to hear this. Leave a comment below and tell me your story. I'd love to hear what you've been through, what you've done, and where you're at in your healing journey. And be sure to subscribe if you want more real, experience-backed strategies to heal your spine, avoid surgery, and take control of your recovery so you can live stronger longer. And if you're ready to start right now with some at-home exercises to relieve the L4-L5 disc bulge, disc herniation pain, go watch this next video, how to get rid of an L4-L5 disc bulge pain. Go watch this video next.